The night was heavy and wet, soaked in mist that clung to the trees like ghosts that refused to leave. 3 boys stood at the edge of a jungle so dark it seemed to swallow the moonlight. No map could show what lay beyond those twisted vines, but they knew the name whispered in villages, the forbidden jungle. No one who went in ever came out. Yet here they were, standing with trembling flashlights and tired eyes, chasing a dream that could cost them everything. Amir tightened the strap of his backpack. "Once we cross this line," he said quietly, "there's no turning back." His voice was steady, but his hand shook as he held the flashlight. Beside him, Bilal gave a nervous grin. "We came for gold, not to turn back," he said, though his eyes darted into the darkness, searching for shapes that might be watching. The third, Hamza, the youngest, said nothing. He looked up at the forest, trees so tall they scraped the clouds, and whispered, "Let's finish this before dawn." The first step inside was like stepping into another world. The air was thick, smelling of decay and old secrets. Every branch creaked like a warning. The soil was damp, swallowing their footsteps. They moved carefully, the sound of insects rising around them like whispers. For the first hour, the only light came from their torches, thin beams cutting through fog and leaves. They followed the old map found in a dead explorer's diary, a map that promised gold buried in the heart of the jungle. But even the map looked half-burned, smudged with dirt and something that looked like blood. Amir carried it carefully, unfolding it every few minutes to check the marks. 3 rivers, he murmured, then the stone gate. Bilal laughed softly. "And then gold, enough to make us kings." Hamza didn't laugh. "If it's real," he said. "If the curse isn't." The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. The trees grew closer together, their branches curling like claws. Sometimes, they heard distant howls, not wolves, not anything they could name. Once, Bilal stopped and pointed. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. A faint sound echoed, footsteps, maybe human. But when they turned, there was nothing. Just mist rolling through the trees. By midnight, their flashlights began to dim. Amir stopped to change the batteries, his hands trembling. "Keep the light up," he said. "Don't let it go dark." But just as he said it, Hamza's torch flickered and died. For a moment, they stood in total darkness. The air felt alive, breathing, watching. Then, faintly, the sound of leaves shifting behind them. Bilal swung his light toward the noise, nothing. Only a tree, old and scarred, its bark twisted like a human face. "Let's keep moving," Amir said quickly. "We can't stop now." They walked faster, but the jungle seemed endless. Every direction looked the same. The compass needle spun wildly, as if confused. The air was colder now, their breath fogging in front of them. A low hum filled the forest, not mechanical, but natural, like the vibration of thousands of unseen insects. After hours, they reached the first river. The map had been right. It was wide, black, and silent, reflecting nothing. They used a fallen log to cross, balancing carefully as the water moved below like melted glass. Halfway through, Hamza slipped, his foot splashing into the current. He screamed, pulling himself back. The water sizzled where it touched his shoe. "It burns," he cried. Amir grabbed him, dragging him across. When they reached the other side, Hamza tore off the shoe. The rubber had melted. The skin underneath was red and blistered. "This isn't just a jungle," Amir said, breathing hard. "It's poison." They wrapped Hamza's foot and kept going, but the air grew heavier, harder to breathe. Strange blue lights floated between the trees, disappearing when approached. The map said they were close to the stone gate, the entrance to the ancient temple where the gold was hidden. Bilal's voice broke the silence. "You think anyone else ever made it this far?" "No one," Amir said. "That's why the gold's still there." The second river was harder to cross, wider, faster. They built a bridge of branches, holding on to each other as they stepped across. Thunder rolled in the distance. The jungle was alive with energy, the kind that makes your skin crawl before a storm. Rain started falling, slow, then heavy, drowning their lights. Mud pulled at their feet, and lightning flashed, showing shadows of creatures moving between the trees. They weren't human. Eyes glowed red for a second, then vanished. Hamza stumbled, clutching Amir's arm. "They're following us," he whispered. "Keep walking," Amir said. "Don't look back." They didn't speak again until the storm passed. The rain stopped as suddenly as it had started, leaving the air thick and humming. Ahead, in the faint moonlight, they saw it, the stone gate. It rose out of the earth like a monument built by giants, half covered in vines and moss. Ancient symbols were carved deep into its surface, glowing faintly like embers. Bilal whistled softly. "That's it," he said. "We found it." But none of them moved closer. The gate looked alive, pulsing slightly, as if breathing. Amir took a deep breath. "We came for gold," he said finally. "We go in." They stepped through the stone arch, and the temperature dropped instantly. Inside was darkness, thick and endless. Their flashlights cut through it, revealing walls covered in carvings of men kneeling before something that looked like fire raining from the sky. The floor was littered with bones, some human, some not. Hamza's voice shook. "Maybe this is where they all disappeared, or where they found the gold," Bilal said, forcing a grin. They followed a tunnel that led deeper underground. The air smelled of sulfur and metal. The sound of dripping water echoed from somewhere ahead. Their footsteps grew slower, heavier. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and for a moment, they all froze. In the center of the room stood a massive stone altar, and on it, gold. Coins, statues, jewelry, piles of it, glowing faintly in the torchlight. The boys stared, speechless. After all the fear, the hunger, the pain, there it was. Bilal laughed, stepping forward. "We did it," he said. "We really." The floor cracked beneath him. The stone beneath Bilal's boots gave a loud, sickening snap. He barely had time to scream before the ground collapsed beneath him. Amir lunged forward, catching his hand just as half his body dangled over the black pit below. Hamza threw himself down too, grabbing Bilal's wrist, their arms shaking under his weight. "Don't let go!" Bilal shouted, his flashlight tumbling into the darkness. It fell for what felt like forever before its light vanished completely. From below came the faint echo of water, or something moving. Amir gritted his teeth, muscles burning. "Pull! Now!" Together they dragged Bilal back onto the ledge, falling in a heap. All three lay there, breathing hard, sweat and dust on their faces. The crack in the floor spread wider, a deep wound splitting the chamber in two. Hamza's voice was barely a whisper. "It's alive. The whole temple, it's moving." The gold still shimmered in the torchlight, innocent and beautiful, untouched by the chaos. It called to them silently, glimmering like a promise. Bilal wiped blood from his forehead and laughed shakily. "Almost died, but it's real. It's all real." Amir's eyes stayed on the floor. "Don't touch anything yet." But Bilal was already walking toward the altar, his boots crunching over the broken stone. He reached out, hand trembling, and lifted a small golden mask. It was heavy, colder than metal should be. As he turned it over, a thin wail echoed from the walls, soft at first, then louder, a sound like hundreds of voices crying through stone. Hamza covered his ears. "What is that?" "The air," Amir muttered, though he didn't believe it himself. "It's just air." Then the torches flickered. A gust of wind blew through the chamber, though there was no opening for it. The carvings on the walls began to glow brighter, blood red instead of gold. One by one, the symbols pulsed with light, and the room began to tremble. Bilal dropped the mask. "We have to go," he yelled. But the tunnel they came from was gone. The entrance had sealed, replaced by smooth stone. No door, no crack, no way back. The wailing grew louder, now mixed with something else, footsteps, coming from deep within the darkness beyond the altar. Amir spun around, flashlight trembling in his grip. "Who's there?" His voice echoed through the chamber, swallowed by the sound of distant breathing. A figure stepped into the light, tall, thin, draped in tattered fabric that moved without wind. Its skin shimmered faintly like metal, and where its eyes should have been, there were two black hollows burning with faint blue light. Bilal stumbled backward. "What the hell?" The thing raised a long, skeletal hand and pointed at them. Its voice came out like wine through bone. "You took what was not yours." The ground shook again. Gold spilled from the altar like liquid, pooling around their feet. Hamza screamed as it touched his boot, it was boiling hot. The gold hissed and bubbled, crawling across the floor like molten metal come alive. "Run!" Amir shouted. They bolted toward the far wall, searching for another exit. The chamber seemed to stretch endlessly, every direction the same. Behind them, the creature's voice echoed again, whispering words they couldn't understand, old, heavy, full of anger. The air thickened until breathing felt like drowning. They found a narrow crack between two pillars and squeezed through, scraping their shoulders against stone. The passage beyond was smaller, low-ceilinged, twisting. Their lights flickered with every step. For a while, no one spoke. The only sound was the dripping of water and their ragged breaths. Then Hamza said, "It's following us." Amir glanced back, he didn't want to believe it, but he heard it too. Slow, dragging footsteps echoing from behind. He turned off his flashlight, signaling the others to do the same. The tunnel fell into total blackness. For a moment, all was still. Then came a whisper, inches from Amir's ear, his name, spoken softly, in Bilal's voice. He turned, heart pounding. "Bilal." But Bilal was ahead of him, silent, frozen. Something brushed Amir's shoulder, cold, wet. He swung the flashlight back on, shining it wildly. Nothing. Only empty air. But there were fingerprints on his jacket, fresh, glowing faintly like embers. They ran. The tunnel twisted downward, turning into a slope slick with moisture. They slid, tumbling into another chamber. It was smaller, circular, and filled with statues, hundreds of them, carved from stone, all kneeling, all facing the center. And in that center, on a raised platform, was a golden idol, a figure holding a bowl of fire that didn't burn. Bilal stepped forward slowly. "This is it," he whispered. "This must be the heart of the temple." Hamza grabbed his arm. "Don't touch it. Didn't you see what happened back there?" Bilal's eyes were wide, almost hypnotized by the glow. "We came too far to stop now." Amir raised his flashlight toward the idol. The fire inside the bowl pulsed softly, as if alive. Shadows of the statues moved across the walls, though nothing else did. Then one of them blinked. Hamza gasped, stepping back. "They're not statues." The nearest one turned its head, stone cracking like bone. Its face was human, but wrong, stretched into silence. One by one, they began to shift, slow and creaking, their heads turning toward the three intruders. The fire in the idol's bowl flared brighter, casting long, dancing shadows. Amir grabbed Bilal and Hamza, pulling them toward the tunnel. "Go! Run!" The statues began to move, stone limbs grinding against the floor. One reached for Amir's leg, fingers breaking off as it grabbed him. He kicked free, sprinting down another corridor. Behind them, the sound of grinding stone filled the air like thunder. They ran for what felt like hours, deeper and deeper into the maze, until they stumbled into a cavern where a faint shaft of moonlight shone through the ceiling. The air here was cooler, fresher. The gold veins in the walls glittered faintly under the light. Bilal fell to his knees, panting. "We can't keep running forever." Amir stared at the moonlight. "That's our way out." The opening above was narrow, far too high to reach. They began stacking rocks, debris, anything they could find. But the ground trembled again, and the whispering returned, not one voice, but many, echoing through the tunnels. Hamza looked around wildly. "They're coming." Amir climbed higher, reaching for the light. Just a little more. Bilal passed him another stone, but as he did, his hand froze midair. His eyes widened. "Amir, your shadow." Amir turned. On the wall behind him, his shadow was gone. There was only darkness, and another shadow, taller, standing right beside him, even though no one was there. Hamza screamed. The shadow moved, stretching across the wall like ink, and then it lunged. The shadow struck like a wave of cold air, swallowing the light. The torches went out. The world vanished into blackness. Amir couldn't see, couldn't breathe, he felt weightless, as if he'd fallen into nothingness. Then, slowly, the darkness began to pulse with faint red veins, like cracks spreading across reality itself. He reached for Bilal, but his hand met only air. Then something grabbed him, not a hand, but the sensation of being pulled, stretched. A voice whispered in his ear, ancient and calm. "You were warned." The light returned in an instant, blinding. Amir found himself lying on cold stone, the cavern silent again. The moonlight above was gone. Bilal and Hamza stood nearby, dazed, their faces pale. What just happened?" Bilal's voice trembled. Hamza pointed toward the far wall. "Look." The stone where the shadow had been was now marked with 3 symbols glowing faintly gold. They looked like eyes, unblinking, carved deep into the rock. Beneath them, faint words appeared, not written but burned into the surface. Bilal stepped closer, his breath fogging in the chill air. "It's a curse." Amir stared at the symbols, his voice barely above a whisper. "No." A warning. The air grew heavier, like the jungle itself was closing in around them. Far above, thunder rolled, a sound they hadn't heard in days. The walls began to drip again, water mixed with flecks of gold dust. Hamza wiped his hand against the rock. "It's bleeding." The droplets shimmered like melted metal, each one leaving a burn where it touched skin. They backed away as the veins in the wall began to spread, glowing brighter, crawling across the cavern like living roots. The floor pulsed under their feet, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Bilal's voice cracked. "The temple's alive." They ran again, deeper into the maze, guided only by instinct. The tunnels split and twisted endlessly. Every few steps, they saw things that shouldn't exist, shadows moving against the direction of their lights, carvings that seemed to change when no one looked, the echo of footsteps that matched their own but slightly delayed, as if someone was following just behind. They finally emerged into a chamber so vast it could have been an underground city. Pillars rose into darkness, each carved with faces, thousands of them, staring down in silence. At the center stood a pool of perfectly still water, reflecting the ceiling like a mirror. Bilal stepped to the edge. "It's clean, drinkable maybe." Amir grabbed his arm. "Don't touch it." Hamza crouched beside it, shining his light across the surface. "Wait, it's not water." The reflection shimmered strangely, showing not their faces but something else, an image of the jungle above, but alive in a different way. The trees moved even without wind, and between them were shapes, humanoid but glowing faintly, like ghosts of a world that had once been here. Then Bilal's reflection smiled. Not the real Bilal, the one in the water. Its grin stretched unnaturally wide, and then it reached upward. The surface of the pool rippled violently as a hand of liquid gold burst out, grabbing Bilal's wrist. He screamed as it pulled him in. The others lunged, grabbing his legs, but the gold spread fast, climbing his arm, his chest, his neck. His skin turned metallic under their touch. His eyes went white. "Help me," he gasped, but his voice was already distorted, mechanical. Hamza shouted in horror. "It's turning him into..." The rest of his words were lost as Bilal's body hardened completely, his final expression frozen in agony. He stood there like a statue, half human, half gold. Then the gold spread outward from his feet, crawling across the floor toward them. Amir pulled Hamza back. "Run!" They sprinted up a steep incline, slipping on wet rock as the gold chased them like a tide. Behind them, the pool boiled violently, the reflection now showing a storm above ground, lightning flashing through black clouds. They reached a narrow tunnel, squeezing through just as the gold reached the entrance. A drop of it touched Amir's boot, hissing, burning through the sole. He tore it off and kept running barefoot, pain forgotten in terror. The tunnel finally opened into a massive cavern where ancient roots hung from the ceiling, dripping with green light. The air was humid, thick with the smell of earth and decay. In the middle of the room was a massive tree, its trunk twisted, its bark streaked with veins of gold. It looked as if it had grown around something, trapping it. Amir approached carefully. Inside the bark, barely visible, was a shape, human. Hamza whispered, "It's someone in the tree." The figure's eyes opened. They glowed faintly blue, the same color as the creature from the first chamber. Its mouth moved, and a voice echoed through the room. "You took the curse with you. You cannot leave." The ground split open around the roots, glowing molten gold beneath. Amir grabbed Hamza and pulled him back. "There's got to be a way out." The ceiling cracked, letting in faint light from above, dawn. After days in the jungle's belly, they finally saw sunlight. Hamza pointed. "There. We climb." The gold spread faster now, covering the floor, eating stone and root alike. They scrambled up the side, hands bleeding, rocks crumbling beneath their grip. The voice of the being below followed them. "The gold remembers all who take. You will not escape." Amir looked down one last time. Bilal's statue stood below, surrounded by the rising tide of gold. His frozen eyes seemed to follow them even as the light swallowed him completely. They climbed toward the light, toward freedom. Just as Amir reached the surface, he felt the ground shift again, the temple collapsing, swallowing itself whole. Hamza reached for his hand. "Jump!" Amir leaped. The world went white. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on the jungle floor, sunlight filtering through the leaves. Birds were singing. The temple entrance was gone, sealed under fresh soil, as if it had never existed. Hamza sat nearby, trembling, his clothes torn, his face gray with shock. "He's gone," he said softly. "Bilal's gone." Amir didn't speak. He turned the object in his hand, a small golden coin, smooth and warm, somehow untouched by the collapse. He didn't remember taking it. The jungle around them was quiet, peaceful, almost beautiful again. But when Amir looked closely, he saw it, faint lines of gold running through the roots of trees, pulsing gently beneath the earth, spreading. Hamza noticed too. "It's still alive." Amir closed his hand around the coin. "No," he said. "It's awake." Thunder rolled again in the distance, deep and slow. The wind carried a whisper that wasn't the wind at all, a voice from deep below, repeating the words burned into the temple walls. The leaves shivered. The sunlight dimmed. And somewhere in the shadows, the jungle breathed. For days, Amir and Hamza wandered through the forest, following the rising sun, hoping to find their way back to civilization. But the jungle had changed. It was quieter now, heavier, as if it were holding its breath. The trees whispered when the wind passed through them, voices faint and distant. Every time Amir touched a tree trunk, he felt a vibration, a low hum beneath the bark, like a living heartbeat. By the third night, they had run out of food. The rain came suddenly, cold and heavy, soaking their clothes. They took shelter beneath a fallen tree. Amir stared into the darkness, clutching the golden coin he had found in his pocket. It pulsed faintly, like it was alive. Hamza watched him, his voice hoarse. "Throw it away." Amir shook his head. "If it killed Bilal, I need to know why. There's something about it." Hamza's eyes burned with fear. "You don't understand, Amir. It's not gold anymore. It's part of that place." Amir didn't answer. He just stared at the coin until the rain blurred his vision. When he finally drifted into sleep, he dreamt of Bilal, standing motionless in the golden temple, his voice echoing through empty halls. "Amir, you brought it with you." He woke up gasping. The rain had stopped. The jungle glowed faintly in the dark, not from moonlight, but from golden veins spreading across the ground, thin as roots. They pulsed softly, moving beneath the soil like something growing. Hamza stood frozen. "It followed us." Amir looked around, realizing the gold was spreading toward them in slow waves. The coin in his hand was burning hot now, impossible to hold. He dropped it, but it didn't fall, it hovered just above the ground, spinning slowly in the air. The jungle went silent. Then, from every direction, came a whisper, thousands of voices, speaking at once. They weren't loud. They were calm. Ancient. "Return what was taken." Amir stepped back. "We didn't take anything. We just wanted to leave." The light from the gold intensified, flowing together into a shape, tall, human-like, but shifting constantly, as if made of liquid metal. Its face was blank, but its eyes burned with the same blue light they had seen in the temple. Hamza stumbled backward. "What are you?" The figure tilted its head, voice echoing like wind through caves. "The memory of the gold. The keeper of the buried." Amir's breath shook. "We didn't mean to disturb it." "You woke it," the being said. "It remembers all who enter. It remembers those who take. It remembers the greed that ended the old world." The trees around them began to twist, their roots pulling free from the ground. The forest floor trembled. Amir grabbed Hamza's arm. "Run!" They sprinted through the undergrowth, branches cutting their faces, the golden light chasing them like fire. Behind them, the creature didn't move, it simply grew, its body merging with the forest itself, veins of light spreading through every trunk, every leaf, every rock. When they finally burst through the tree line, the jungle ended abruptly. A wide river shimmered under the morning sun. The sight of open sky made Amir's heart race. Hamza dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. "We made it." But Amir didn't speak. He was staring at the reflection in the water. It wasn't showing the sky. It was showing the temple, still buried, still alive, pulsing beneath the earth. He looked down at his arm, a faint golden crack was forming under his skin, glowing softly. Hamza saw it too and froze. "Amir, your hand." Amir clenched his fist, trying to hide it. "It's fine. It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. The glow spread slowly up his wrist, following his veins. It didn't hurt. It just hummed, like a vibration deep inside his bones. They built a raft from fallen branches and crossed the river. The other side led them to dirt roads and, eventually, to a small village, old houses, silent streets, faces that looked at them with suspicion. Amir and Hamza told no one what had happened. They stayed in a small hut near the edge of town, pretending it was over. But at night, the whispers came back. The gold hummed beneath the floorboards. On the fourth night, Hamza woke to find Amir gone. He followed the sound, a faint metallic ringing from the forest edge. There, under the moonlight, Amir stood barefoot, staring at the ground. The gold had spread across his arms and neck like vines, glowing faintly through his skin. Hamza shouted, "Stop! You're changing." Amir turned, eyes glowing faintly blue. His voice was calm, distant. "I can hear it, Hamza. It's not angry anymore. It's calling. Hamza took a step back. Don't listen to it. Amir smiled faintly. Maybe this isn't a curse. Maybe it's what we were supposed to find. He lifted his hand. The earth trembled. Gold lines spread through the grass, connecting the jungle to the village, crawling under homes and trees. The villagers woke to a strange golden light rising from the ground. Hamza ran forward, grabbing Amir's arm, but his skin burned at the touch. The light grew so bright that it swallowed the forest in a single flash. When the light faded, Amir was gone. Only a golden mark remained in the soil, circular, like a seal. The jungle was silent again. Weeks later, travelers passing through the area reported strange things, faint music coming from underground, trees that shimmered faintly gold at night, and sometimes, a human shape seen walking deep in the forest, its body shining in the dark. They called it the Keeper of Gold. Hamza never returned to the jungle. But he carried one scar, a faint golden line across his palm, which pulsed whenever he dreamed of Amir's voice whispering through the dark. Years passed before Hamza saw the jungle again. He had left his home behind, trying to forget the screams, the storm, and the gold that had nearly cost him everything. Yet every night the same dream returned, the temple glowing under the earth, a voice whispering that something had awakened. When the government announced an expedition to study the strange minerals found near the old forest, Hamza volunteered. He said nothing about what he knew. He only wanted to see it one last time, to make peace with what had happened. The helicopter landed on the edge of the green horizon. The jungle was thicker than ever, but different. The plants shimmered faintly, not gold, but with a natural phosphorescence. Scientists believed it came from bacteria feeding on metal deposits below the soil. Hamza knew better. He led the team deep into the forest, through the same trails he and his friends once followed. The air was heavy, the ground moist and warm. They found ancient stone carvings half buried in moss, signs of a civilization that had mined the area centuries ago. Deeper still, the trees parted around a massive crater filled with vines and mist. Hamza stopped at the edge. Down below, sunlight filtered through gaps in the canopy, catching on something metallic, a buried structure, not glowing anymore but reflecting the light like glass. The scientists were thrilled. A lost mining site, one said. There's probably untouched or under there. Hamza said nothing. He climbed down alone, his boots slipping on the wet rocks. When he reached the bottom, he touched the wall, cold, smooth, almost like metal fused with stone. The carvings there told a story, of people who dug too deep, who took too much, until the mountain itself sealed them inside. It wasn't magic. It was memory, the earth remembering what greed had done to it. Suddenly, a tremor shook the ground. The walls cracked open, revealing veins of metal that gleamed faintly under the light. The others shouted from above, but Hamza just stared. Beneath the earth, the gold hadn't died. It had become part of the land, locked within its roots, unmovable. When the tremor ended, silence returned, a deep, living silence that felt almost peaceful. Hamza climbed back to the surface and looked around. The jungle was still. The air smelled of rain and soil. The birds returned, their songs echoing through the trees. He smiled faintly. "You were right, Amir," he whispered. "The gold was never meant for us." That night, the expedition camped by the river. Hamza sat alone, staring at the moonlit canopy. For the first time in years, he didn't hear whispers. Only the sound of wind, of leaves moving, of a world healing itself. The next morning, when the team prepared to leave, one of the scientists handed Hamza a small piece of rock they had collected. Inside it ran a faint golden thread, not pure metal, just trace minerals formed naturally. "Strange," the scientist said. "This gold is fused with plant material. It's alive, in a way." Hamza nodded slowly. Maybe that's how it should be, part of the earth, not taken from it. He left the jungle with that thought, never to return. But every time he closed his eyes, he could still see the sunlight breaking through the canopy, falling on the place where his friends once stood, a reminder that nature always remembers, and always reclaims what was stolen. And somewhere deep beneath those trees, hidden under roots and stone, the forgotten temple rested quietly, not glowing, not cursed, just waiting. Centuries passed. The jungle grew thicker, deeper, more alive than ever before. The path that once led to the temple disappeared under layers of roots and time. Rivers changed their course, and trees older than cities rose where men once dug for gold. The world around it moved on. New nations rose and fell, machines came and went, but the forbidden jungle remained untouched, a green ocean of silence. Birds sang where smoke once rose, and the earth healed its scars. Then, one day, a group of explorers arrived. They carried drones, scanners, and maps that showed nothing but endless green. Their leader, a young woman named Lara, had spent her life studying stories about the lost jungle of gold. No one believed her when she said it existed. On the 5th day of their expedition, her scanner picked up something strange, a circular pattern of metal beneath the ground, perfectly symmetrical, unlike anything natural. She followed it through the thick vines until she reached a clearing. There, beneath a great tree whose roots coiled like serpents, the soil glimmered faintly. Not gold, just the soft reflection of sunlight on ancient stone. Lara knelt, brushing away dirt until her fingers touched something smooth. She uncovered a fragment of wall, etched with symbols, 3 figures standing beneath a sun, one of them holding a circle. She looked up at her team. This isn't a myth. They began digging carefully. As the hours passed, more of the ruins appeared, an archway, a staircase, and beyond it, a vast underground chamber. It wasn't gold that shone in the light, but crystallized minerals that had grown around metal, turning it into living stone. Lara ran her hand across the carvings. The designs told the same story Hamza once saw, of people who came searching for treasure and instead awakened something powerful, the will of the earth itself. She found a small object half buried under the dust. It looked like a coin, but when she lifted it, it crumbled softly into powder, centuries of decay, returning to the soil. And yet, for just a second, as the dust fell from her palm, the light shifted. The air grew still. The forest outside went silent. Then, from somewhere deep within the ruins, a faint sound echoed, like a heartbeat. Lara froze. Did you hear that? The others listened. The sound faded, almost as if the jungle itself had sighed in its sleep. They packed their tools and left before nightfall. None of them saw the faint shimmer spreading across the roots where the coin had fallen, or how the vines began to twist gently, growing toward the light. By morning, the clearing was gone again, swallowed by the jungle, covered in moss and silence. The gold was still there, somewhere beneath the earth, hidden not as a treasure, but as a memory, the memory of men who came seeking riches and found the heartbeat of the world instead. And when the wind passed through the trees, it carried a whisper that no one could quite understand, soft, ancient, almost human. The earth remembers.